Okay, we'll be able to start in just a few seconds. It's loading now.
Will the boardroom come on?
Okay. Are we ready?
The boardroom video?
He's not on yet. He's not on yet.
On the side stream?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alicia, can you turn on the boardroom?
Is that it? Oh, there. Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah. Can you also unmute?
Okay,
There we go.
we're unmuted and on video.
Thank you very much. Top day, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners regularly scheduled meeting this January 23rd, 2024. It is now 12:08 p.m. here at GHURA's main office in the first floor in the beautiful village of Sinanya. I call this meeting to order. Begin with roll call. Vice Chair Sanchez. Thank you very much. I know Commissioner Sasaki sends his regrets. He wouldn't be able to join us. Commissioner Delia.
Here.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Rice.
Here.
Thank you. And Commissioner Corpus.
Present.
Very much. We do have a quorum. And so we will proceed with item number 2, board meeting public announcements. First printing in your packet as a copy January 16th. And then the second printing on January 21st. Okay, and all is accounted for. And looks good. We will proceed with item number 3, approval of previous board minutes of January 9th located in your packets.
So Chairman, the only corrections I noticed were really on the first page, where it does have the meeting year as 2023. It should be January 9th, 2024. And the same where under call to order, that needs to be changed to January 9th, 2024. And then under the GHURA and management staff in attendance, we just need to indicate that Julie Lujan, our MIS administrator, was present virtually. And then we have a duplicate of Nicole Alejandro. She's on the first column and the second column, so we just need to delete one of her names.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much. So noted. If there's any more corrections, please let us know. If not, and all is in order, and you're ready, you may call for a motion. Okay, get a motion?
Ready?
Sure.
I will make a motion to pass our previous board minutes dated January 9th, 2024 with corrections.
Noted, may I get a second? Second. Thank you, Vice Chair. For the second, any further discussion on the matter? Hearing seen none, may I call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your right hand so I can see it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you very much. Motion passes unanimously to approve the minutes of January 9th, subject to correction. Thank you very much, Commissioners. Moving on to item number 4, new business resolution number FY 2024-006 for GHURA's compensation plan. Madam Executive Director.
Thank you, Chairman. If I may just, there's a memorandum that accompanies the board resolution, and if I may read it. It is regarding resolution number FY 2024-006, GHURA compensation plan. GHURA's compensation philosophy is based on 3 R's: recruit, reward, and retain. The last compensation plan for GHURA employees was resolution number FY 2022-006, which was approved at the 12/27/2021 Board of Commissioners meeting. It was indicated at that time that the plan was still below the Competitive Wage Act of 2014. Hence, the Board of Commissioners mandated that the plan be revisited sooner than 3 years from that approval date. GHURA's Compensation Committee had been diligently working on how to close the gap that was widened, particularly with the passing of the Competitive Wage Act update of 2023, which gave 22% pay adjustments to government employees under the general pay plan. This compensation plan is focused on rank and file, utilizing comparables against the national average. Since GHURA is 100% federally funded, we must pay close attention to program budgets with steady and consistent increments that are reasonable, cost-effective, and sustainable. We must also ensure that the compensation plan remains competitive so that we are able to follow the 3 R's of our compensation philosophy to recruit, reward, and retain the valuable workforce needed to meet GHURA's mission. We thank you for your attention and consideration of this compensation plan and hope for a favorable outcome. And you will note that in your packet, we did provide Table A, which is referenced as transitional slotting purposes only for FY 2024. And then there is a Table B, which is the FY 2024 salary increment substep table amended. And then, of course, the board resolution. So I think before I read the resolution, if you would like to take a look at the tables, and then if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them. We do have the deputy, I believe Kim, is Kim in the boardroom?
Yes.
Okay, for any questions that you may have before we move on to reading the resolution to approve this 2024 GHURA compensation plan. It really took a while for us to figure out, you know, what would benefit all the employees and yet be something that was reasonable and sustainable budget-wise.
Ms. Kim, you want to just go ahead and give us a little bit of a rundown on this, based on what the executive director was saying about the balance between budget and, you know, what is reasonable for. And then I guess once you do that, my question to you is going to be, can you articulate how this is going to then stabilize, you know, our force, right? And not give us some of the headaches that we have right now.
Yes, thank you, commissioners. It's been 2 years since our last compensation review, like Director Liz had mentioned. It was actually Commissioner Sasaki and Commissioner Okada who told us 3 years is too long. If you can come back sooner, review, give us an updated version. And so we've been diligently working together, and we took a different approach. We're no longer looking at the DOA, even though we can fall below DOA. It's just we're looking at a different set of data, which is the market.
Okay.
And so I have to thank Ms. Liz and Deputy Fernando, who's taken up the mantle of this project. That was by the late director, who was always a force to always look at the employee and how it affects retention, recruitment, and rewarding. And so basically, Mr. Stebbins,
Yeah,
I'll turn it
sure.
over to you, and then we'll go. We have a presentation.
Okay. So the main thing, and just to reiterate as in the memo, is the main focus of the wage consideration using management principles is really a focus on the rank and file, right? And understanding where we were falling short on, right? And that's where the GPP mostly covers. Individually for, you know, intermediate supervisors as well as senior management, they get a little bit more focused, one in terms of PD reviews, things like that could be kind of a one-off desk audits for their positions, but understanding really what's going on with the workforce and making sure that we were competitive, right? Because they really are the future of GHURA. They really are, you know, the workhorse of the agency. So that encompassed about 89 positions of the 121 that we have hired currently. So definitely the bulk. With the consideration of the transitional slotting and where that would put them, that's going to put 58 out of the 89 within the 15th to 40th percentile nationally within their respective comparable job or occupation. Not quite where we want to be. We want to have a starting about at the 25 or 30th percentile. A lot of positions that we have closely resemble or are reflective of the GPP, where they might have, like, for example, clerk 1 to clerk 3. However, you know, nationally, you know, they don't identify those by those you know, monikers. So we apply that 1 to 3 clerk range should encompass the greater range of that salary, right, in terms of percentile. So if you're coming in as a clerk 1, you may be in the 25th percentile. You know, after about a mid-career, you should be closer to that 50th percentile. And, you know, if you put in 20, 40 years, you may be, you know, an outlier on that. But we also want to encourage upward mobility, right? And that, you know, if you're pursuing higher positions as a promotional, in good practice, that's where you're going to be start to see those higher things. So 58 out of 89 will be in the 15th to 40th percentile. This recommended pay plan will put 16 employees in the 50th percentile, so that puts them at the national average. And then 15 out of the 89 will be above. And, you know, individually, we just wanted to double check the data to make sure we good. These are the outliers in that, you know, we want to account for them, but they may be somebody who was like 40 years in the agency, 30 years. So, you know, we don't really want to use them as, like I said, they're an outlier, but we do account for them ultimately. Very much our rank and file, we didn't do a deep dive into our mid-level leadership. So anyone who's a supervisor above or senior management wasn't the main focus. Now, in order to try to, you know, stay ahead, we, you know, did consider the transitional slotting of the 5% just so that they don't fall behind. But the major change is going to be the shift from the increment from what was tiered based on salary to a 2%. Now, running the numbers based on that, that's going to place the rank and file on a 10-year trajectory in a favorable. So if you run the numbers, they'll ultimately make out better with this, even though they're going down to a 2% increment. And that's really why it's important that we do this transitional slotting, which solves two things. One, it provides an immediate incentive that makes us more competitive right off the bat. Two, it increases the power of that 2%. So even though we're dropping it down, and the 2% becomes a more projectable metric as we work within the grants to be able to sustain it. And then lastly, what did I cover? The 15% that, oh, and it also moves the starting salary. So even though our employees that are filling the slots right now are going to get their respective transitional slotting, it also moves the starting for that position. So when we hire somebody, they're not starting, you know, in the negative in the 5 percentile or 10 percentile. So it accounts for one, the employees that we have of the rank and file and new employees. So it kind of meets all the different, the 3 R's of our philosophy. Now, it's not perfect. Not everyone's going to, you know, be happy, but what we can say is the vast majority, particularly, especially, well, all of the rank and file, and then the vast majority of everyone is going to benefit positively from it.
Could you just touch a little bit more on those instances where you are identifying that there may be some people unhappy? What are those instances?
A lot of it is stemming from just kind of that visual shock. You know, if you're getting 5% and you see somebody getting 15%, that's kind of a shock, right? And that's one of the troubles that we have when we just try to use a side-by-side comparison of the CWA, where they just said, well, you know, we're low, let's give everyone 20%, regardless of whether you're making $200,000, right, or you're making $15,000.
Right.
For that, that's not really what we can apply to GHURA, particularly because GHURA is 100% federally funded. We're program dependent. All the programs have their nuances. Money comes in at different times. So we also have to consider overall cash flow, even though we're on an accrual basis. And then the other thing is, unlike Guam, we can't raise taxes. Unlike GPA, GWA, we can't raise rates. So we have to really work within our means to meet our mission. Now, you have some programs that have more money that can pay their people more, others that don't. From an organizational strategy, we can't have that kind of internal conflict between the programs. And we just have to, you know, understand we're really subject to the whims of the federal government and what they provide. If we were flush, you know, we would provide more, it'd be a different story. We could afford to be more generous, but we just need to be reasonable and competitive. And that was the main goal.
Means to an end.
It's a means to an end. We got to meet our mission.
You're juggling the morale variable as well.
Yeah.
Right? So,
I mean, when it's pay, it's a personal issue.
Yeah.
But what I can say very confidently is we took the top-down approach. When we considered it from what our mission mandates are, what the money situation is, because really that ultimately dictates, and then what our organizational responsibilities and strategic goals are. Unfortunately, we can't look at it on an individual basis and what a person thinks they should be making, versus we really cannot be doing the side-by-side comparison to the CWA. In fact, and you'll see in the resolution, when DOA did the analysis for the COA and was comparing themselves to autonomous agencies, they took the highest ends of the autonomous agencies and completely took GHURA, which was on the lower end at the time. And, it really wasn't a good comparison. So we were just, trying to adjust the narrative of how we look at pay because of the reality of our funding situation. I hope that provides a little more insight.
And it's a step in the right direction.
Sure.
We have to
Absolutely.
stop the bleeding with the
Yeah.
exits, with the local labor market.
Right. And I think that's my next question, right? Because I understand that this is not an end, right? This is just a step. So if you were to plot out for me, what would be the next steps and the timelines for that? What, all else equal, right? What would that be?
I'd say a reevaluation. So the projections, especially the mid-level, which there's no doubt about it that those on the lowest rungs are really going to benefit. But where we really had to run the numbers and look, the projections were the mid-level. So those between 55 to 70,000, and that's why we added a tier 2 in there, because there was we had to project 10 years out.
Okay.
Because there was a change in their increment structure, we wanted to make sure that they didn't lose, right? That was the key focus. So those projections put it 10 years out. So I would safely say, that we have something more concrete within 5 years at the 5-year mark in consideration. But the fact that we're looking at the national averages will allow us to kind of trend and keep up to date with it. And the idea is that the increments don't put us too far back. What's important about that is the calculus changes a little bit, or not really the calculus, but the math changes a little bit, because as people retire, right, particularly those outliers, it may change what available funding is applicable to personnel costs. Right. And so the main thing about the increment change wasn't to hurt people. They're still going to benefit. That's why we ran the numbers, but it's to pace out that, right? And I don't want to be rash in saying this, right? But for the sake of transparency and honesty, right? If we're applying management principles, there's not that we're putting a cap, but there should be a steady increase, to pay based on longevity, but not to the point that it far out exceeds the Hay methodology on what that pay range is going to be, if that makes sense. Right. So if you're doing a certain job that has a range within it, you shouldn't be exceeding the range without leaving that job. Because complexity, responsibility, those things won't change. And so we just wanted to make sure that we're accounting for that, right? And we don't create a situation where, we're running into that. Nothing that the employee is doing anything wrong, or that we don't value their time, but we just had to apply those basic principles.
Consider all the variables.
Yeah.
You said you had a presentation?
That's it.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, it was kind of a verbal. We just wanted to
Yeah.
keep it
Yeah.
simple.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I got like
You got
Excel stuff,
Yeah. But
ornamental leaves.
Yeah, the Excel spreadsheet, I know you provided an Excel spreadsheet before to see where they're at now
Yeah.
versus where they're gonna be, so can you send that to us also?
Sure.
Yeah, we have that. Yeah,
Okay.
I actually tried to print it. There's a memory issue with the printer right now.
Okay.
Additionally, what we also did different is we built the calculator for this. The original intent, right, just to share, because I don't think the staff has heard this yet, is we weren't really sure in affordability. That was the hard thing to answer, because we have so many different grants. That created the biggest delay, was how we were going to resolve and really have an honest discussion of what was affordable and what was not, agency-wide. So we built the tool to do that. So we built the calculator in a way that, one, it measures against allocable funds that are, one, eligible, and two, available that can go to salaries. by division, right, by grant type. And then basically all they would do is they can go in, put in a percentage on what the traditional is gonna be, and it would calculate everything for them. But really,
You built out your own algorithm.
well, we built it in case we couldn't provide anything, then we wanted to give or something lower than what we're able to offer now.
Right.
So that we can be transparent with the employees that, look, we really tried, right? This is what the numbers came to, and actually, it benefited because it showed that we could go higher than what our initial thoughts were.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be comfortable that we're not going to be hurting operations by digging in too deep
Yeah,
for salaries.
Yeah,
Because we're answering to HUD,
sustainability
you're
was a
answering
big key.
Right.
How do you sustain?
Yeah,
Yeah, macro and micro.
I mean, you know, we could pay a maintenance worker $100,000, but if we can't afford tools
Yeah.
or the vehicle or any of the materials, then,
Yeah.
you know, we're not meeting our mission. So those are, no maintenance worker, that was just an example.
Yeah.
No, no.
I wanted to. He's gonna get off the board for 2 years.
Are you? No, but that's to Chairman's question, so roughly about 5 years we're looking at?
I think or less, I mean, we're gonna be constantly
I
monitoring.
mean, that's conservative number.
Yeah.
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 And market, yeah. If I can add to Chairman's question, we know we have a number of neo-political and a bunch of other variables that are also taken into consideration. Yeah, so is there anything that in the foreseeable future that both of you can add to what Chairman just asked that could potentially hinder or become cumbersome towards implementation of transitioning into
Yeah,
body?
cuts to HUD, that's
Yeah.
really
That's pretty much it.
Yeah, if Congress says, you know, reduces funding levels, that
Yeah.
hurts us, absolutely.
Okay.
And we have to be mindful of that. I mean, right now, we're doing this, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
And the federal government's still on a CR.
basically,
They still haven't passed the budget,
yeah,
you know? We have reserves and, you know, historically,
right,
but, you know, the thing is, that's our responsibility as executive management and the board to consider those things that they may not be seeing, right? And so, you know, I think that some of the, you know, maybe the discontent with, you know, the amount that they're getting doesn't take that into consideration, which understandably, right? No hard feelings to that, but it's really our responsibility to take all those things into consideration. Our rank and file, the vast majority aside from us, are classified employees, three of us and you know, our legal counsel, they're classified limited term.
Right.
You know, by the very nature of their employment, it's all subject to the money.
right.
And that's why we wanted to make sure our analysis was unfortunately really focused on that, but that's really what it is the bottom line, right? The bottom line in our mission. So that's the one thing I think could be a hindrance is if HUD cuts back funding.
Okay.
Yeah, on one program area or another.
Right, because that was one of my biggest concerns from a finance perspective, right? 'Cause,
Yeah.
You know, we're in finance and, you know, I'm looking at, you know, global trends economics,
Yep.
right? Social psychological economics, right?
Recession.
There were presidential election on the, right? And we got the, you know, political issues that are going on in Southeast Asia. You know, macroly speaking, that ties into money, right?
Yep.
So things roll downhill. So I was just thinking like, yeah, I mean, yeah, we may have a plan in play, we have something potentially that could be implemented, and, you know, there's just all those unforeseen events that could, you know, derail.
Yeah.
Right, so just wondering if, you know, what are best contingencies that are logically gonna be implemented to preserve, most importantly, Kim's biggest objection was to, or excuse me, objective was to maintain morality and be competitive,
Mhm.
right? So we don't
And
lose good
attractive.
quality. Yeah, stay attractive. Right, so that was one of my issues, actually, excuse me, wrong word, that was one of my concerns. Is because there are unforeseen, because it always happens, especially in presidential elections, right? You know, things get pretty heated up. You know, a lot of promises made, et cetera, and going back to what you said, yes, very important, because the funding could be derailed. And potentially cut in all this hard work, because it would suck, because naturally we all value all the work that it's an ungodly amount of inundated information you have to compartmentalize.
Yep.
And it would just suck to not see it come to fruition. So I was like, I hope, because collective intelligence that you guys have, that there will be contingency, because like Chairman said a couple meetings ago, you know, we want to maintain everyone's, morale, right? And we
Yeah.
want to stay competitive, and make sure that we're not losing our good quality employees, which all of them are,
Mhm.
and then when we lose somebody, then the whole process starts all over. You have to keep going back, you have to keep going back.
It's a balance because, it's a balance of all those things. So yes, we were both want to give as much as we could, but wanted to be conservative in that we want to maintain a reserve and want to have room for anything that may come up. Maybe not even because of the geopolitical or political contingencies,
Right.
but purely because of operational needs, right? Something happens, there's another storm, things like that.
Acts of God.
Yep.
Just being more responsible
Yep.
in our approach.
Now, as for
I think it's good.
for planning, we consider succession planning, right?
Right.
So we consider retention and reward, they're important factors, but not to the point where, we move an entire agency, right, for one or two superstars. I'm all about, talent, but we are a professional organization, and maybe I'm pulling the military mindset from that, but we need to build the organization, have contingencies and succession plans, so that at the end of the day, ultimately, we want everyone here to be replaceable, even myself and the executive director, right? That it's good organizational management and practice. Not to say we don't appreciate talent. So we want the compensation plan to account for all of those things, right? And account far enough into the future, not just beyond, my term here at GHURA or Miss Liz's term
Right.
here, because we're temporary, but something that's going to be sustainable
Right.
and meet our objectives long term.
Setting a new precedent.
If I may, the other thing, when we were going through and having all these compensation planning meetings actually with the committee is, I think one of the things that a lot of the employees forget is that they're fortunate that at GHURA, they have an annual performance salary increment structure. They had that for many, many, many years. That's how actually it kind of got too top heavy, right? We have people that are like in that tier one that make a lot more than the ones that are in tier three, and it was because they got if you did highly satisfactory or outstanding, you could get the 6% annual increment, right? And that's how some of their salaries really we were getting too top heavy, and I think the new pay schedule and then the modified annual performance salary increment structure will help us to be able to sustain, the salaries for the different tiers that we're going to have moving forward. But really, GHURA is fortunate that they get the annual increment if they perform, the pay for performance, if they perform satisfactory or higher. And in other government agencies, it's like maybe 18 months before you see anything, right? Or maybe you're fortunate if you even see anything in 3 years. So yeah, I just wanted to add that.
So, I mean, well, first of all, right, I just want to say, this is, as the Vice Chair said, this is a lot of work, right? We know this intrinsically. Right, thank you for honoring the wishes of the previous board members, and also Commissioner Sasaki, who stood with us on this board, right? Definitely, I don't think anybody is opposed to being competitive and making sure that people get what they need. From my standpoint, I think there's a few things that I would put onto record and insist on. I want to insist that after the 2-year mark, that you put a review into this, not for any action state, but just a review. You start the review, and then in 2.5 years, you make a report to the board as to how this is working out, right? And that should give us some time to give you some time to work on it, but also give us some time to take a look at the conditions of the environment, and then see whether or not this is working or not. Again, not for anything more than just let's get a pulse, right? This is a 5-year plan, which is a good one, right? That would give us enough time to see whether or not we need to course correct or pivot, right? I think the other things that I would like to see is, and you may have put this into your agenda, but if not, right? some sort of a few presentation to the employees.
Yeah.
Not only to kind of go over this, which is what the deputy was talking about, right? And just kind of, we have that opportunity to express it to them and have them answer any questions that they may have. But maybe also, you know, to qualify some of these things like, and you may have it, but I think it's always a good refresher, you know, what does satisfactory mean? What does highly satisfactory mean? Outstanding? And so that we don't fall into the trap of top heavy anymore. And we're giving out increments as they are deserved, right? And just qualifying some of those into a very specific means. And an example, right? And this is something we go through in where I'm at all the time. Satisfactory for us means you're doing your job at 100%. All right. If you did everything that we asked you to do and you were outstanding, that's satisfactory, right? That's not over and beyond, right? And so qualifying that would also then help. And then as the executive director was saying in the same presentation, you know, kind of just remind folks, right, about how GHURA is different and what we bring to the table and the opportunities that are before them. And just take that opportunity to refresh that, right? And I think that would go along. That's the only things that I have. I don't have any personal objections to this. Again, right, thank you for the work and thank you for ensuring that our folks are, and please express to them that, you know, this is, while we'd love to give everybody, right, the moon, the stars, the reality is that we're bound by a lot of things that are beyond our control and the forces that put parameters around us to make the important fiscal decisions that we have and know that this was not taken lightly, right? And that's all I have.
Thank you for that, Chairman, and duly noted. And actually, we do have plans to have a meeting with the employees so that we can go over everything and answer their questions, etc. So that is something that is going to be scheduled. We have been planning that since we were meeting to go over how we were going, you know, what we were going to present. So we will do that. Did you want me then to go on with reading the resolution?
Yes,
Are we
please.
ready for that?
Mhm.
Okay. Resolution number FY 2024-006. Resolution approving the 2024 GHURA compensation plan. Whereas the Board of Commissioners of the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority, GHURA, is granted by 12 Guam Code annotated subsection 5103 and subsection 5104, the powers, rights, privileges, functions, and duties of the authority enacted through policies, providing for the internal organization and management of the authority and for the administration of its affairs and operations. And whereas GHURA recognizes the need to recruit, reward, and retain qualified employees within the authority to meet its obligations. And whereas GHURA's last compensation plan was enacted in December 27th, 2021. And whereas the Department of Administration, DOA, Competitive Wage Act, CWA, update memorandum dated January 30th, 2023, summarized their compensation analysis. And whereas the DOA internal equity mean wage analysis by occupational category compiled benchmark data from other autonomous agencies such as Guam Power Authority, GPA, Guam Water Works Authority, GWA, and the Port Authority of Guam, PAG. And whereas the DOA CWA analysis recommended and resulted in a 22% pay adjustment for the general pay plan, GPP. And whereas GHURA, in the normal course of its business, conducts compensation reviews. And whereas the significant increase of 22% accelerated the necessity of its review process. And whereas finds that benchmarking against the CWA presents challenges due, to its infrequency and non-inclusion of GHURA, and that analysis against national benchmarks is a consistent and reliable measurement to funding authorities. And whereas GHURA is 100% federally funded and unable to generate income through increased service rates or taxes. And whereas any compensation adjustment in GHURA must be reasonable, affordable, and sustainable. And whereas management requests the Board of Commissioners to approve the authority's updated compensation plan, which will encompass a transitional slotting based on salary ranges to the new pay schedule and a modified annual performance salary increment structure based on the following. Number 1, transitional slotting. Salary tier 3, with a salary range 60,000 and below, will have a transitional slotting of 15%. Salary tier number 2, with a salary range of $60,001 to $70,000, will have a transitional slotting of 10%. Salary tier number 1, with a salary range of $70,001 and greater, will have a transitional slotting of 5%. Number 2, increment. Salary tier, which will be tier 2 non-exempt with a salary range of 55,000 and below, their increment will be paid for performance. Salary tier 1, which will be exempt employees with a salary range of $55,001 and greater, their increment will be 2 sub-steps for satisfactory or higher. Number 3, the pay for performance, which will be the tier 2 non-exempt, will have, if they rate satisfactory, it will be 3% increment, highly satisfactory, 4%, outstanding, 6%. Whereas funding for the updated compensation plan is available respectively from the FY 2024 budget. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the board approves the 2024 GHURA compensation plan, and be it further resolved that the 2024 GHURA compensation plan shall be effective immediately.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, any further discussion on the matter?
And doing it as amended.
Which section?
Last whereas. On the
Management requests.
any compensation adjustment. You know, it just says adjust. I apologize.
Oh, any comments? Okay. Commissioners, may again, if you have nothing else, commissioners, may I get a motion on the floor?
I will make a motion to pass resolution number FY 2024-006, approving the 2024 GHURA compensation plan as amended. One change,
Right.
correction.
That's amended with that one, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, may I get a second on the motion? All
I'll second that.
right, thank you, Commissioner Carl, for the second. Any further discussion on the matter? Okay, hearing and seeing none, may I call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, thank you very much. Motion for board resolution FY 2024-006 as amended with that one grammatical error adjustment now passes unanimously. Thank you, commissioners. All right, congratulations. Call your order.
Thanks, board.
All right,
We'll make sure we extend those
yes.
to staff.
Right.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 5.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, we don't have any project updates or division updates for today's meeting
Thank you
or
very much.
any announcements.
Okay, thank you very much. With no further announcements, the only other item on that item number 6 on their announcements is the next proposed meeting. Tuesday, February 13th, 2024 at 12 p.m. Please mark your calendars. Of course, we will make sure that we reach out to you to confirm those dates. that's all we have, right? If there's nothing else, may I call for adjournment? Okay, can we get a motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn.
Can we get a second?
Like this.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Rice, for the second. We adjourn this meeting at 12:51 PM. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Record?
Huh?
Thank you, guys.
The employees will be very
Thank you,
grateful.